I think it's going to be quite a fairly short call today. We have only one demo and one announcement, but I'm especially excited to see that demo though. But first, let's appoint note takers. I've posted the notes in the chat, but actually I will take notes today. And I don't believe there are new people today. I would like to welcome Alejandro back. Nice to see you here, Ali. And
sorry, I was muted. Thank you.
And we have one announcement by Faku. So would you like to go ahead, Faku?
Hey, yeah. So basically, I don't know if you remember a little bit what I mentioned in the last Soldips call about the agreements app. So yeah, we've been rethinking a little bit about the architecture of the agreements app, and probably I can show my screen for a second. Will be better to follow. Let me know if you can see my screen there, guys.
Yep.
Okay, so basically what we tried to accomplish was to see if there was a way to have an architecture for the agreements app that basically any other app could interact with, or like let's say interact with. And so instead of having like a huge agreements app that anyone would be allowed to scale actions that would be delayed for a certain period, putting some collateral at stake that could be challenged, and so on. That was the whole idea that I would be explaining the last time. The idea now is that we will still have that, but the idea is to have it as more like as a framework. So any other app could be part of it. And the idea would be like to define a protocol of how these like any apps could like submit actions or notify the agreement that there was like a new event in the context of each of these apps, and the agreement will of course cover the part of those events or those actions that are happening of each of these apps to become disputable. And so all the dispute and challenging domain will remain on the side of the agreement, but then each of these apps can or not implement the protocol of how they can handle like the fact of being disputables. And yeah, that was more or less what we've been discussing. So yeah, the agreement app is now like a bit thinner than before. It doesn't hold the staking logic. The idea is to use a shared staking pool instead of having like a staking implemented in the agreement app itself. Then the whole context about each of the actions that could be disputed, it now belongs to each of these apps. So the agreement will now only hold basically all the settlement, the challenging logic, the interaction with the court or any other dispute resolution protocol, and that's it. That was more or less the architecture that we came up with, and we saw that it was feasible, and we're doing some tests around it, but it's looking pretty good. And the implementations that were already ongoing in the Aragon app repo had been updated with this. So yeah, I will probably update the technical document that I shared in the forum, I guess, or in Discord. I don't remember honestly. In Discord, I think it was. Yeah, I will update it today with this new architecture. So yeah, that was, I think, more or less the announcement. Not sure if I'm missing something that it's relevant to mention. Any Brett or someone else that was in the meeting, remind me if you think I am missing something important.
The only thing I'd say is this is kind of an open invitation for Aragon app developers to see if they like to build a disputable. We now have a couple of different use cases that was why we started re-architecting into this more generic fashion. And so we're now seeing cases like delay voting, conviction voting, data line voting, et cetera, that are all interested in plugging into the agreement and being able to send disputes. And if you have other applications that may be interesting to do so, we'd love to get your feedback and see whether or not it was possible for you with the current way we've hooked things up. Theoretically, it should be quite easy. There's just a couple things, interface things to handle. And I think, as Faku said, there's a link in Discord describing these in more detail.
Thanks a lot, both of you, for this update on this re-architecture of the agreement. This is pretty cool. Anybody has any question about this? All right. I think there's also an announcement that we have a new calendar for the developer events. The link is posted in the chat and will be in the notes. Bingen, can you hear us? No, I think he's having trouble to hear us. Up next, we have a demo by Alejandro and Gabby for this for the new toolkit. Well, actually, for the subgraphs. So, would you like to go ahead, Gabby and Ale?
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead first. 1 second. Sorry, 1 minute. Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see
Yep.
it.
Okay, perfect. First, I would like to go over it a bit into the subgraph and the implementation. The Aragon subgraph, actually the graph itself give you a way for you to describe the data structure that you want to build. So you have the schema that you define the entities that you would like to get, and what we decide to go with finally with the entities is with the organization factory and the registry factory. These are the organization factory is where we will handle new organizations and create the whole structure and data of the organization. And then the registry factory will handle the repo creation and information about repos and versions of each application repo. Then each organization will have the application information and the permission information. Those are the main data points that we would like to get to start building the new tooling. And we are also looking into integrate with the IPFS in the node to get information about the artifacts and metadata of the app. And one thing that and we will then create the mappings to fetch the information from the blockchain. And now what I would like to show you is this in the Graph Explorer, where you can see the and fetch information about the deploy subgraph. We have 3 for now: the Rinkeby, staging, and mainnet. And here you can play with the actual schema and submit some of the queries and get information about the application. For example, here we are getting information about the first organizations and the applications they have. And you can also, here are some example queries like the registry, and get all the information about the content of the repo, and what was the semantic version, and what was the name of the repo. And you can also get information about the factory if you want to know how many organizations are viable. And yeah, here you have like the whole structure of each entity, and you can create your own queries if you like. And now Ale are going to show you how we are handling this information in a connector.
I'm sorry, Gabby, can you post the link to the repo and to the online graph URL? Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for reminding that.
This is very, very cool, by the way. I think a lot of people will like that.
Hey guys, can you hear me and see my screen?
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, with Gabby's graph, basically we can know anything. So like once you start using this thing, you can realize that you have superpowers. Like you can know anything you want, and of course anyone could directly use this. It's pretty simple to query a graph from JavaScript and just manipulate the JSON data you get back. But once you start like wanting like more sophisticated things, like for example, I'm gonna mute someone who's introducing noise. Who could it be? I'm just gonna mute everyone. There. Okay. So yeah, once you want to do something more sophisticated, like to open up WebSocket to listen to subscriptions, it gets a little more bit more complicated. So if you use the tools we're building, you should get everything out of the box. And of course, there's other reasons to use that instead of the graph directly. You may not know how to do GraphQL queries. So okay, what does it look like? So this is an example CLI app, which basically sets up uses the tooling we're building and sets up a connection. The connection is currently looking like this. Sorry for all the comments, I'm trying new stuff. But you say what kind of connection you want. In this case, I'm saying the graph. And then you give it some data that it's going to need. You could say instead that you wanted an Ethereum connector, which would use what we had before in Aragon.js. An event sweeper aggregator thingy, or you could use the graph, right? Once you have the connection, you can ask it to connect to an organization. So you get an organization object back. And once you have the organization object, you can start asking for things like, give me the permissions, right? Or give me the apps. And what you get back is not a bare JSON object with information about the app, but it's actually something you can interact with. Of course, it has properties like the name of the app, the address, etc. But it also has methods. For example, you can ask it for a REPL, and then you get a REPL object back, and a REPL also has methods, and so on. Let's see this running. So yeah, as you can see, it's getting all the information back, and it's super simple to use. What are we getting back? We're getting back a list of permissions, a list of applications, then a particular application by name. This is, for example, app by address is getting fetched by this. Then a voting up is looking, filtering the applications by name and getting it back. And then you can get, yeah, pretty much anything. And the way that works, I don't know if we should talk about that. Like the architecture with this is basically you use a function called Aragon Connect from the tools to get the type of connector you want. It will build it for you and give you this object back, which you can connect to organizations, and later on we may want to connect to factories or other stuff. It's basically a gateway to the graph or any other connector that you may be using. And then you get an organization back, and you can ask for example, for the apps. It will go to the connector you're using. In this case, it's the graph connector, and perform a query, parse the data for you, and give you the app objects back that you need. And each connector obviously has its own architecture. If you want to see the code, it's very easy to understand. It's basically defining a query, getting these typed objects back, parsing them, and conforming to the higher level objects that the user eventually interacts with. And right now we're trying to connect not only to the organization data, but to use custom subgraphs. For example, this is the subgraph of a voting app, where you can query for votes or specific casts on votes, and you get all this data back. And what we're doing right now is figuring out how this could connect to this very simple usage. Like, we would like to say, give me the voting app, and then give me the votes. We are currently working on this interface, and we should have an experiment or something to try out sometime this week. Does anyone want to ask any questions?
This is very exciting, guys. I think there has been a lot of demand for that, so I think this is going to be very popular. I actually have a question. I saw that the demo was on a small CLI on Node.js. I assume this will be also available from a browser?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Pierre answer that with more detail, because he actually designed the higher level API. I'm just implementing the GraphQL connector.
Yes, that's the idea. This library is going to work exactly the same way on the browser or on Node.js. So the way you're going to connect to fetch your data is going to be done through different connectors. Like here we're seeing the graph connector, but the way you interact with it is going to be like exactly the same. And we can imagine in the future, using it in a CLI app or using it from a web app.
Perfect. Very, very cool. Anybody has any other questions? Ale or Pierre, can you post the repo link in the chat?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. Very cool demo, by the way. And you were saying that you will probably have something to where that the developers will be able to experiment with probably this week or next week.
Well, you can already experiment with interacting with an organization. Like, it's right there in the link I'm about to post. But what I was saying is that we should have a way to interact with a particular application, like a voting application, later this week.
Oh, okay. Great. So anybody would like to add anything to this call before we end it?
Yeah, I would like to say that with Gabi we're planning to try out using it in the app installer this week, so yeah, we can give some feedback and do some testing there.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you very well.
Gabi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that this week we plan with Gabi to test it out with implementing it in the app installer. So yeah, we will be able to provide some early feedback and do some testing there.
Okay, cool. By the way, a demo of the app installer would be really, really cool. I just learned about this app and it's really, really nice.
No, like we did one on the previous All Devs.
Oh yeah, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it for this call. Thank you, everyone, and see you in 2 weeks.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.